Potatoes. Now, who doesn't like potatoes? It is one of those basic ingredients available around the world and in all cuisines. I simply love and adore potatoes. And my earliest memories of food, which I learned from my mom, was to make a very classic and a simple dish called as a Sukhi Aloo, or a dry roast potatoes. Now, potatoes are a very humble ingredient, but you know what? Most of the time people get it wrong. Try making a very simple mashed potatoes and you will know how difficult it is. The quality of the potatoes are extremely important for the dish you're trying to create. My earlier memories was when mom used to make these wonderful potatoes which were very simply flavored with cumin seeds, lemon juice and coriander, and they were very dry. And it takes me back to memories of my childhood when we would travel to see our grandparents in North India from Bombay. And it used to be around 24 to 28 hours by train. And potatoes were always there in our tiffin box which mom used to carry. My memories are having those potatoes with some flatbread or puris, which are deep fried breads, is because these potatoes can also be had cold or at room temperature and they work equally well. And they can last for up to 2 days at room temperature. So sitting into the train, enjoying the scenic view of the rural part of India was phenomenal. And to get to eat those potatoes which were so lightly and humbly spiced with a nice cup of warm kadak tea or a chai is something I will never ever forget. And also the bonding you have with your family traveling together. So those memories are eternal. They can never really go. What I'm going to try and show you today is a similar dish which has a modern version of the potatoes. Now, classically, those Sukhi potatoes or dry potatoes were put into a saute pan and they were cooked or slow roasted for a long time till the exterior becomes nice and caramel and absorbs all the flavors, and they're rich with lemon juice and the herbs. I'm going to show you my version, which will be a roast potato which you can make at home in a very simple manner, add lots of flavors, and you can finish it on the oven. To start the dish off, you have to have the right kind of potatoes. There are basically two types of potatoes. There is the waxy potatoes, which have got a higher sugar content, and then there are the starchy potatoes, which have less sugar but more starch. Now, the starchy potatoes are very good for things like frying or for roasting because they hold shape well, and when they cook, they get a very nice golden coating around it. It has a very nice kind of a caramel color around it, and it becomes crispy. The waxy potatoes are much more fluffier, and so they're very good for making mashed potatoes. I personally find that if you use King Edward potatoes, they work extremely well for this kind of a dish. I've got some water boiling here. Now, in the water, I'm going to add flavor. Now, potatoes is such a simple ingredient that it can absorb a lot of flavors on its own. It's very neutral as a taste palette, and because you have something very neutral as a taste palette, you can actually add more flavors into it. A lot of people come and ask me, Chef, how does your potato have such intense flavor compared to what we have when we make our dishes? And the secret lies here of how you add your flavors and your spices into the potatoes. Now, when you have a thing like a water has got no flavor at all, that is the first medium for you to actually add flavors into your food. So you start imparting flavors into your dishes through a medium like water. It absorbs all the flavors. Now, water also absorbs all the colors. Now, we have got spice here which has got flavor and we have got color. So I'm going to use red chili powder. You don't need to add too much. Literally 3/4 of a teaspoon is more than enough. Turmeric powder into the water. Just stir that in. Salt. Seasoning is very important. If you don't put the right quantity of salt and you don't season your dish, there is just no flavor in the food. It is a very basic ingredient, but without salt, there is just no flavor. And without flavor, there is just no life. So you need to season your food quite well. Now, as you can see, the water has already become reddish and has a slight yellow tinge to it because of the turmeric. What I'm going to now add is something you should really try at home and you must follow, and that is baking soda. And I'm going to come to you as to why do you use baking soda. But again, not a large quantity, literally half a teaspoon is enough. The reason why we add the baking soda is because it takes out the pectin from the potatoes and brings the starch to the exterior of the potatoes. So in short, this jump starts the cooking process to caramelize or brown the potatoes on the outside and make it more crisp. So what happens is, once the starch comes outside and when you cook your potatoes, the starch envelopes the potato outside. It becomes like a fluff or like a slurry or like a paste. And when you put them in the oven to roast or to bake, the exterior becomes nice and light and becomes crisp. And what it actually does, it makes it that extra crisp which you would not get by not adding baking soda. So a tiny quantity of baking soda will change your cooking process or will enhance your potato dish forever. Potatoes are now going to go in. You always need to add extra quantity of water when you're boiling your potatoes because you want that movement of the water around the potatoes for them to cook evenly. Never overfill your boiling pot. It's like when you're frying, you never add too much into the oil, otherwise it doesn't fry properly. The same way when you're boiling vegetables, keep a lot of water. I would always say the ratio of 1:3 works perfectly well. So 1 part of your main ingredient and 3 parts of the water. So there's enough water to move around the vegetables for it to cook very evenly. Going to give it a stir. And we're going to bring it to a boil. I don't want to fully boil the potatoes, just want it 3/4 done. This will take approximately 7 to 8 minutes for it to be ready. Potatoes are almost ready. This has taken a little more time, so I would say around 10 minutes. It also depends upon the quality of the potatoes. But what I'm going to show you now is the technique of how to check. So if you look at the potatoes, it's taken on the colors of the spices, the turmeric and the red chili. It also gives a little coating. But if you can see the exterior of the potatoes becomes slightly rough. It opens it up. That means the starch has been released. And if you rub your fingers around it, you can feel the starch on to your fingers. I'm going to cut this, and you see it cuts in with a little resistance, not too much, but here we are. Can you see that? It's just slightly raw in the center, but the outside is just ready to go in the oven. This is now going to be strained, and there's a trick of straining it. The potatoes are now going to go into the colander. It's going to drain out all the spiced water, and you can see the lovely color of the potatoes. It's got a very nice, bright, kind of a yellow color to it. Look at that. Very nice colors. Now there's one more tip which is very important. At this stage, what you have to do is you have to basically very violently shake the colander with the potatoes. What that does, it basically breaks out the exterior of the potatoes and forms like a paste or like a slurry. And that is like some kind of like a mashed potato, but just coats it very lightly on the potatoes. Now when you bake the potatoes in the oven, that exterior, the light fluff, becomes extremely crisp. And what you would get is a very nice caramelized, golden, crisp exterior, but a very nice soft interior of the potatoes. So that's how you get the perfect crisp roast potatoes. Okay, the potatoes are done. Now comes the second part of actually adding flavors into the potatoes. We're going to make it even more interesting. I have a roasting tray here, and all I'm going to do now is spoon the potatoes in the roasting tray. Oh, the lovely aromas of potatoes. This is really going to come out extremely well. So on the side, normally what you do is you're going to sprinkle some oil, you sprinkle some spice powders, and you put them in the oven and you're done, right? Wrong. No. We're going to take it a step further. We're going to heat up a pan and add some oil. Always use a neutral oil because there's a lot of flavor anyway in the food. Also, when you have a neutral oil or a vegetable oil or a sunflower oil or even a canola oil, they have a higher smoking point. You don't want oil which has a very slow or a low burning point because it doesn't taste right then. You want something where you can heat the oil and still the oil doesn't burn. So a neutral oil or vegetable oil is perfectly fine. In this, I'm now going to add garlic. It doesn't need to be really hot to start off, but a good generous amount of garlic. Just to sweat the garlic down, and you want the garlic to really become nice and golden and caramelized. What I'm doing here is I'm actually imparting a flavor into the oil. I'm going to add a little more oil. The tendency here is to add spices here. Mustard seeds, fennel seeds, cumin seeds, whatever you want. But I'm not using any whole spice. My only spice powder I'm going to use besides turmeric and red chili powder is my garam masala powder. So you remember my variation of garam masala had so much of flavor compared to a normal simple garam masala. That is going to be imparted into the dish, but at a different stage. This is a cooked spice, so it doesn't need to go in now. It will go right almost at the end just to flavor the dish. But what is going to happen here is the oil will pick up all the flavors of the garlic and it's going to transfer onto the potatoes. Just waiting for it to get nice and golden. Avoid using butter because if I was cooking garlic with butter right now, the butter would have browned off and would change color and also change the flavor for the potatoes. Oh, the whiff of aroma of the garlic is so nice. There's something about frying garlic, the sweetness, and when you add it to food, it just brings it to life. This is almost done. I'm going to switch off the heat. I don't want to brown it entirely because I will be cooking them again in the oven. Now watch this trick. You pour the garlic and the oil through a strainer onto the potatoes directly. So here we have golden garlic, and because they've been cooked in the oil, they tend to become sweeter. Now all the garlic flavor in the oil is now gone on to the potatoes. I'm going to season that with, and all you do is gently fold in the potatoes with the salt and the oil. And you spread the potatoes very evenly onto the tray. Don't want them to stick together. You want them to have enough space for the heat of the oven to move around the potatoes. So what you will get is a very evenly coated or evenly cooked on the exterior. There we are. The potatoes are now ready to go into an oven. Always have your oven which is preheated, and this time is going to go at 200 degrees centigrade or 400 degrees Fahrenheit in a convection oven. Potatoes should be ready by now. Here we are, look at that. It's got a very nice golden crust to it. We need to cook the potatoes evenly on all sides to get the golden color, and the normal tendency is that you start shaking the potatoes earlier. Now what that does is the potatoes are very tender and they tend to break down. So you have to leave them in the oven for a good 10 minutes so that the bottom of the potatoes literally gets caramelized and cooks. The sides begin to cook. The top will not be cooked yet. And now what I'm going to do is going to use a spatula and I'm going to flip the potatoes on the other side. If I'd done it earlier, say 3 or 4 minutes down the roasting process, they would have broken down altogether because they are so soft and tender. So 10 minutes works perfectly well. All you need now is a spatula, and you slightly loosen the potatoes and you flip them over. So you can see, because the bottom has cooked well, they release very easily, and they also take on a nice color. Most people tend to put a lot of oil at this stage just to ensure that you get a very nice even release, but you don't need to do that. You need to literally add just about enough oil and never add too much. The exterior is looking nice and crisp. They're light golden. You're not completely browned up, and you can see that. You've got a very nice kind of a shade to it. The flavor of the spices have mixed up quite well. It's because we had the flavored water. There we have. At this stage, I'm now going to add the garlic. Now, the garlic has been fried in oil and become nice and crisp and slightly sweet. Oh, that's yum. If I added the garlic earlier along with the potatoes, by now they would have literally got deep browning color, or rather overcooked. So once the potatoes are almost done, this is almost, I would say, 85% done, I now add all the garlic. You might feel that it's a lot of garlic at this stage, but trust me, it is not pungent garlic or raw garlic. It is nice, sweet garlic. And because I have loosened up the potatoes from the tray, it's very easy to move them around. So just make sure you toss your garlic with the potatoes. I'm also going to add a little salt at this stage. That's the salt. Very gently, just move the potatoes in the pan. 85% potatoes done. This needs to go back in the oven for literally 3 to 4 minutes just to ensure that the potatoes are fully cooked. So that's back in my preheated oven. And while my potatoes are going to finish off, I am now going to do my vegetables or my herbs for the garnish. I've got some fresh mint here. I'm going to just slice some mint. In most Indian restaurants or in Indian homes, unfortunately, they treat their herbs very badly, and I feel very bad about it because they tend to cook the herbs. Herbs are very, very delicate. You need to literally add them at a very last stage just before you're serving it to your guest. So I've got some mint leaves here, and all you do is you basically make a little stack of mint leaves together. You can tear them up if you want with your hands, or use a scissor or whatever. I like to use a very sharp knife. If the knife is not sharp enough, it'll bruise the leaves. So literally you roll it up, and with a knife, all you do is just rock your knife on the leaf and you get very nice slices. Or you shred the mint leaves. Just opens it up. So we've done the mint leaves and the coriander. So for the coriander, use the stalks and the leaves which have been washed. Just shake off all the extra water. The stalks have a lot of flavor. The mint stalks are quite fibery and they become a bit bitter, so avoid the mint. Just use the leaves and not the stalks. But the coriander has got a lot of flavor on the stalks, and they give us a nice crunch and a nice bite. Then all you do is hold them in your fingers, and again, you do not go hard on the leaves, or you don't really press it down too hard. Very gently You just let the knife do the work. You always resting your knife next to your finger and just slide your knife down, just lightly rock it. The tip always on the table. There you go. It doesn't have to be a very finely chopped coriander. A little bit of coarseness is perfectly acceptable. There we have. Herbs are extremely delicate, they're very aromatic. Never ever cook the herbs. So when you are serving your dish to your guest, either potatoes or vegetables or could be a grilled meat, you keep your herbs chopped and ready. You sprinkle it at the very last, lightly dress them up or toss them together, and you serve it to your guest. And that is it. And that is the best way to use herbs. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, the smell absolutely gorgeous. Such a nice aroma. The garlic is still nice and golden. The potatoes are looking absolutely crisp. Perfectly done. At this stage, and I'm going to add my final spice, which is my garam masala powder. So literally at a certain height, because you want it to spread very evenly. So you sprinkle the garam masala onto the potatoes. If you put it too close, what happens is all the garam masala goes onto one single potato and forms a little strong flavor. So at a height, just sprinkle it and drop it down. Now I've already used turmeric powder and I use red chili powder to flavor the potatoes, and that's already there. But the garam masala is an aromatic spice. It does not need to cook because it is already a pre-cooked spice. It's more for the flavor and for the last aroma for the dish. So it needs just a little gentle sprinkling on top. What I'm also going to do is going to put some lemon juice. And as soon as the lemon juice hits the potatoes and the hot pan, it begins to sizzle. And that is music to my ears. That's what I want to have. I want to be able to communicate with my potatoes. I know it sounds a bit weird, but you're actually talking to them in many ways. The lemon juice and the potatoes are a fantastic combination. It really works well. It gives a very nice flavor. So when you eat them, you get a very nice kind of a citric freshness to your palate, and it makes you want to eat more. Potatoes done. I'm going to lightly move them with my spoon this time. And you can see they have cooked, and once they cook, they become a bit lighter. But what you have is the wonderful golden potatoes. At this stage goes in the herbs. The first thing to go is shredded mint leaves, a little more, and coriander. So chop coriander leaves on the potatoes. I just love coriander. Now again, if you want to add any other herb like a thyme, you can use thyme. A little gentle toss. So all I'm doing is now just mixing the herbs, the garlic and the garam masala with the potatoes. And there you have it. I wouldn't really bother transferring it into a serving ware as such, because you serve it as you cook it here. Simple potatoes. I'm going to have a little try. Oh, it just breaks down. You can see that? It just mashes in your fingers, and still the outside is nice and crisp. Oh man, this is absolutely heaven. Food to die for. A very nice undertone of the citric of the lemon, the softness of the creamy, rich potatoes, the crisp exterior, and the wonderfully fresh mint and coriander. You can't get better than that.